Thank you, Austin. So we're going to begin right now. And so first of all, thank you all for coming out or signing into Zoom on this chilly March night. We try to do these meetings. We previous to COVID, we did these meetings in Green Township. And we actually find that it's somewhat easier to do a meeting. We can reach more people on Zoom. So I guess we'll have to have that discussion, Chuck, if we're gonna go back to in person and or
Well, it would be
maybe
it would be
hybrid,
really,
somehow a hybrid meeting or something.
it would really be, well, that might be complicated. We'll have to see. But I mean, we'd have to find a venue, whether it would be Green or some other place. But it'll be a while before we get the station. That might be the ultimate goal, but
That is the ultimate goal, yeah.
but not immediately, obviously. So, but yeah, maybe Green Township. That's a possibility, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so we'll keep everyone posted on that. For now, Zoom seems to be a very good way to reach a lot of people. And from the safety of your own home, you don't have to drive out. But once we do get to the station or get on the property officially, the goal would be to meet in person again. So we're gonna have
Zoom is good for those of us born in the area.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Which is why Zoom works. I like Zoom, to be honest with you.
You know, their ARHS went, virtual for the pandemic, but their plan is to go hybrid and offer both even once, because they basically added 100 members over the pandemic by doing that. So it is a way to bring in people from all over that can't necessarily make it to their meetings. Again, I'm North Jersey. I'm not going to drive to Quakertown to go to a meeting, but I participate virtually, and again, their membership increase was phenomenal. So it's, if you can set it up. And again, I attended a conference, or was supposed to attend a live conference up north of Poughkeepsie last week, somewhere between Poughkeepsie and Albany, and for preservation. It snowed a foot up there. I bailed the day before, but they had the conference. They had a virtual option offered, and they switched over from one to the other. They had screenshots of the hall. It's the way to do things if you have somebody who's technically savvy who can do it.
Well, we would need to have some kind of camera set up, and that's something we would have to
Which is
investigate.
right.
Yeah.
Which could be as much as simple as somebody's iPhone.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will I think we will do something like that, like a hybrid. We'll look for future announcements, because I think that is the way to go.
So we do need a venue, in other words, we do have to have a physical place to be if we're going to do that. And also, hopefully, internet. Now that the problem with Green Township, I don't know how good their internet is. So that's something to keep in mind. We'd have to test that out.
We will definitely post an update on that. We could also use the Lake Hopatcong station, as that's completed now, and we could use that possibly. But
Okay.
we'll have a future, that'll be in the fall. We'll talk about that as we get closer. As for tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Greendell. We have a Roseville Tunnel update, and we have some an Amtrak update to Scranton. I'm just going to ask everyone to mute themselves, and then we'll take a pause when we're done with the news section. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comment in the chat section. Make the comment down there. Okay, so Chuck, if you can hit the slide. So Greendell Station. So this has been, this is our home where we're going to be. As many of you guys know and have been following us for years now, the lease, or as the DOT calls it, a license, has been an issue. However, we do think it's very close. And I just wanted to provide a little context here for some newcomers. The DOT owns the cutoff west of Andover. Okay, Andover, of course, is where New Jersey Transit is going to be going with their with their service eventually. And anything west of Andover, including Greendell Station, is on this section owned by the DOT currently. And we've been negotiating with them for several years, and we had a lease, or as they're calling it, a license in place a year ago. We saw it, we signed it, we were ready to go. And our contact, Andrew Ludacy, retired at the end of 2021. And he actually came out to the station and visited us when we had our plaque dedication, but he left as of December. However, we have another contact, a gentleman by the name of David Cook. He is back. He was on a medical leave for basically all of last year. And he has basically, as of March 1st, we have an updated license / lease, which we signed. New Jersey Transit, at the last minute, 2 weeks ago, had requested 4 provisions into the lease. One of which was if they could ever take the station back if they needed, which we kind of knew this going into this. This is how New Jersey Transit does leases with other historical properties around their system. So there's the letter that we got. DOT made a new license, lease up, and that's what we signed. And we sent it back to them this past week. And so the lease license with the New Jersey Transit provisions is at DOT, and the state attorney general has to sign off on it, and then we should be good to go. Senator Arrojo's office, they've been very helpful in this. They checked in this week. So we feel right now, as of what's today's date, March 5th, that the lease / license, they're calling it a license, is very close. We signed it on our end. The DOT people signed it. We're waiting for the state attorney general and somebody at New Jersey Transit to sign it. And then we will officially have the lease for the station. So that is an update on Greendell. It could happen next week. It could happen in 2 weeks. It could happen a month from. I don't know how fast the state moves, but it seems very close. Okay. So that's where we stand with the lease. Greendell Station, as of March, or as of, I should say, as of the end of 2021, we have $6,214 in our account. We haven't done any fundraising because we were waiting for the lease. We did our taxes with Paul Tracy of Byram Township. He's been doing our taxes for the last several years. Last year in 2021, we did a lot of brush clearing. We did some fencing, general maintenance. We put new locks on the fence in the station door. So that's where all our money from last year went. We may be using a landscaper. We might have our buddy Steve Kelmer helping out this year. We're not sure yet. He's still involved in our group, and he's been the gentleman who's been doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff for us. If we do have to use a landscaper, the gentleman happens to live right around the corner from the station, Hanson's Landscaping, and he will keep an eye on the property as well. So we have good neighbors, and we're in good hands when we're not at the station. Chuck, if you want to go ahead. Greendell projects. So once we have this lease license in place, we are going to obviously need insurance. It's mandatory. That will be the first item we have to do on the agenda. We will be announcing a fundraiser to do the roof, to be determined. According to the lease, the specifications of the lease, we have to actually get 3 bids on it, and we have to submit them formally. So there's a process to this, and we will be looking at those. We'll once we have the lease, we'll have a meeting to discuss how we're going to move on with the roof. It was discussed that we need water for a sprinkler system. No official functions can be held in the station without an operating sprinkler system. And again, we're going to fine tune that once we officially have a lease. and electricity. And Steve, who's the maintenance guy, his son happens to be a contractor with JCP&L. He did some work for them. So we have some help potentially in that area as well to keep the cost down a little bit. Station events in 2022. If we have a lease, we will be meeting in person, hopefully. And we'll have some events at the station. We might do a Santa later on in the year. That's a good fundraising event. We have some other ideas we've been toying around the idea with. I see we have a question in the chat. So the person who said we need a sprinkler system, Chuck, do you recall the gentleman's name? He was on the planning committee, I believe, and we had an informal meeting at the station, and this gentleman.
Steve, if Steve were on the call, he would know who he is. He did mention that about the
Maybe he's
sprinkler
a
system.
retired council person from Newton, if I recall correctly, and he knew about building codes and all of these things, and he had said that the sprinkler system to have the well water, to have water would be needed. So that's the answer we got on that.
We may have to do some additional reconnaissance on that one to verify. I don't know that we want to go and put in a sprinkler system and find out it wasn't absolutely necessary. It probably is, but I think we probably just want to confirm that. One question, Keith, what just came to mind is if we would need 3 bids or 3 whatever, people or entities bidding on each individual job. We wouldn't need that for the electricity because there's only one JCP&L, I would think, right?
That is true. Yeah, that would be yeah, that's. I
don't know
clarify
what else
that.
would we do. I don't think there's any other
Clarify that
option.
with-
Right?
That's a good point.
So
maybe electricity might be in a different category there.
Yeah, but that might be the only one, unfortunately. Okay.
And also, I know Mike Delvecchio is with us tonight. Mike, we had been preliminary discussing possibly doing an event, and we're going to discuss that further if we have the lease. So I don't know if you wanted to speak to anything about that, or did you have any comments about that, about what we?
First, in terms of getting 3 bids for projects, it generally depends on your fund sourcing, if that requires it. If you've got somebody donating money, you don't need to go out for bids, but if you're using public money, then you need to go out for bids. In terms of doing an event at Greendell, that's for the DLNW Historical Society symposium this year, which they wanted in North Jersey. Right now, it looks like that's going to be in Montclair. The
Okay.
Montclair Station has offered the waiting room free of charge for just nominal insurance coverage. So Tri-State will provide that. And so we're working with that looks like that'll be down there. Maybe part of a tour if it gets open. The thing will be late September will be the event. So, Greendell's just not a sure enough thing yet. So, and Lake Apacon is a great place to meet. We're going to do that there, but Montclair really wants to do this. They'd like to have a namesake event at the terminal because the development there is starting, and a beautiful edifice. And right now they're running a restaurant in the place to get attention, but they're going to suspend the restaurant operation for the weekend of the symposium. So they're being so welcoming. And it's a nice place to have an event, and it's close enough to Hoboken and Newark and all these other places to see that side of the Lackawanna. So it's a good move.
Yeah, if there's anything we can do to help promote it, and we'll post it on our page, and we want to be good partners with you guys. So if there's anything you guys ever need from us, just please let us know. And
Still counting on a presentation that would, just so to talk about what you're doing with Greendell and et cetera. So
yes, we can. Yeah, we'll have a more of an updated one too for when we can present for you guys. Absolutely.
right, and I forget, were we talking September or August for a tri-state event to do a tri?
September, October, I think we were talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Sounds good. Well, it sounds like one show, 2 for the buck.
And maybe next year we'll have more progress. And then if you guys, 2023 want to, once we get everything going here, then maybe you can use our location next year.
Would love to have a tri-state meeting at your location
That'd be perfect.
in
No, we'd
person.
love to have one too.
And we're doing hybrids as well as soon as we can get back in. The Morris Museum where we normally meet, we haven't put that back together yet. We're thinking about after the summer going back to the Morris Museum on a regular basis. But we met in several different locations. That's working out well. We've done the Lackawanna Station. We've done Morris Plains Station. So we've had some nice meetings at various locations.
Perfect.
Not Morris Plains, Mountain Lakes.
Yeah, Mike, is the symposium still set for the last of September and the first 2 days of October?
We haven't nailed down a date because there are 2 events in September by the local historical groups, so we don't want to compete with those.
Okay.
One of them was Rockaway Weekend, Rockaway Days, because Tri-State's always involved in running trips there. And that event has not been planned yet. So that's the 3rd weekend of September. Booton has Museum for a Day the 4th week of September. So it'll either be the 3rd week of September or the 1st week of October.
Okay.
So far.
It appears there's a lot of events this year with the Port Jervis Museum people. They're getting going with a Memorial Day event. So, and I think Steamtown is doing something this year too, Mike, if I saw correctly.
Steamtown announced the Rail Fest in the middle of June.
Okay.
And the release is sort of curious because it does not mention any rail events. They're bringing all kinds of other stuff, including the iron pour and local stuff, but they didn't mention any railroad events. Now, their traditional grand opening is Memorial Day weekend, so we're trying to have the F3s ready for that.
Okay.
So
Any announcements, we'll post it to our pages. So we'll
Okay.
get everything, all the news out there once it's
all right, we'll share those. Was one other thing you asked, and okay, but anyway, we're good.
okay.
And
Chuck-
Mike, you've got access to the Lackawanna Historical Society Facebook page.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Chuck, you wanna-
I have to apologize. The fellow just talking, and there you go. Oh, you're Fred Heilich.
Yeah.
Oh, great. The lighting is weird here, so it didn't look like you, but good to.
I'm normally in the closet because that's where the best reception is. And whenever I do DL&W Historical Society, Bill and the other guys are always ragging
It's
me for
always
being
in the closet.
Well,
They say I'm still in the closet, so I haven't come out.
He's still there.
all right, Fred. Now I recognize it. It looked like a horror movie.
Yeah, Spenguli.
So Keith, I don't know, how much do you want to,
Yeah.
want to talk about the press coverage? I mean, there's
Yeah, these
actually probably more
articles-
than this, but I mean, this is part of it.
Yeah, these articles have been posted on our page. Obviously, I'm not gonna, this is not English class or, if anybody wants to go back and scroll through, they've been, the dates I put the dates on here. For a couple of them I did actually. They're the 112, January and February, there were a couple of pieces written, opinion pieces. They're on our Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee page. It seemed like in January, things were going really, a lot of coverage and everything for the Amtrak service and all that stuff. So, and it's been a little bit quieter lately, but there have been some articles, opinion pieces written, and they're all found on our page there, Facebook page.
And a lot of this stuff that's happening now is behind the scenes. I'll get into a little bit in a moment, but it may, at least from the Amtrak side, be somewhat quiet over the next few months, potentially. We'll see.
And I'm gonna turn this one over to Chuck for the Roseville Tunnel update, which is kind of starting up again a little bit, but I'll turn it over to Chuck.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So if you've been paying attention to the Facebook page, you probably know pretty much all of this already, but I'll go over it anyway. So the bids for the Roseville Tunnel have been accepted, and it would also include right-of-way work, also would include Hudson Farm as well in the one package. The lowest bid was 32 million from Chevron, I believe it is, which if you look them up, they've done a huge amount of work, not only for just New Jersey Transit. They were involved with the Second Avenue subway tunnel. I mean, they've done a lot of work. So I'd say there's a pretty good chance they're going to be the designated contractor, the winning contractor, which we anticipate we'll find out within the coming weeks. Don't have an exact schedule on this, but we're told it could be fairly soon. But the deadline, if there is one at all, was really established by Kevin Corbett, who we got a copy of a letter that was sent out by him mentioning that the cutoff, the Andover 7.3 mile part of the cutoff is on their 5-year plan, New Jersey Transit's 5-year plan, and that the bidding is the results of the bidding, in other words, the final decision is expected to be approved by the board of directors by late spring, which we're thinking is either May or June. They do have a June meeting. So probably by mid-year, we're going to know that this is going to start out. Now, the thing is with the tunnel work, it's a design and build situation. So even though we expect there's going to be stuff going on at the tunnel, it may be that a lot of the work is not going to happen immediately. They actually do. It's a the contract reads that they have 750 days to complete the tunnel project from when they basically get the green light from the board of directors. That's a little bit over 2 years. It's like 2 years and 20 days, I guess it would be. But they have 300 days in order to do their initial work before they start construction. So we could literally go the better part of a year without seeing any construction. I kind of doubt that, but they do have that leeway. But they have to, by day 300, they have to start construction. But I would expect that if they're getting the okay in mid 2022, that we'll probably start seeing stuff probably right away, I would expect, and especially in the fall after the whole thing with the bat, the Indiana bat prohibition, which I think is October 1st in Andover, either October 1st or November 1st. And that's when you'll see right-of-way clearing and all that kind of stuff taking place, because the project not only involves the tunnel, but also involves the 8,000 feet west of the tunnel to Andover, and including, I believe, the Andover station site itself. So that actually would clear all that out. So all the woods that are there, which you can't really, it's difficult to conceive of something, a rail station or, rail right-of-way being there. That'll be one of the things that'll be most dramatic, I guess you could say.
You're gonna have to build a road up to the tunnel, so it should be interesting.
Well, they have two options. I think there is an old road which actually is right by the tunnel. It has not been used in ages. That's one option. The other option would be for them to come in literally via the cutoff and go from Port Morris all the way to the tunnel that way. That would get them to the eastern portal. The west portal, there is an access, I want to call it a driveway, but an access road of sorts, which has a berm built up to try to prevent people from going in and out, but that's been used over and over again. But that's right at Andover. So it's like maybe a little over a mile from the tunnel on the west side. So I could see both sides having to be used, especially if they're doing work in the tunnel and you can't necessarily go through the tunnel.
Right.
So you're going to have probably access for both sides.
That's exactly right. They'll probably do all three options,
It's quite possible, yeah.
Big material coming up the right of way, and then heavy equipment up and down little access roads.
Correct. So now getting to Scranton service, Scranton, New York service by Amtrak. We know, this is no secret, this has been in the press, that the Amtrak has been talking to the Pennsylvania Northeast Regional Railroad Authority That's Larry Malsky's organization out in Scranton. Their study that they are doing with Amtrak is due to be completed by August or earlier, but August the latest. Now, there was a meeting of, I don't know that it has an official name, but it's sort of like a coalition of stakeholders, I'll say, involved with the project, both from New Jersey and from Pennsylvania. That was held on January 4th. We are looking to have one, when I say we, the collective we is looking to possibly do one here in New Jersey, maybe in June. There is no firm date on that, but when certainly that is announced, we'll announce it on the page. So but right now that's just a conceptual type of thing, so that there'll be a balance between meetings being held in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. Just for FYI, there are other projects which are vying for Amtrak's attention in Pennsylvania. They are, as you're probably aware, Allentown, New York City, Reading, New York City, although that one's via Philadelphia. It's not a direct route to New York. And then there's also an addition of trains to the Harrisburg-Pittsburgh service, but that's not a new service. It's believed that politically one of the new services for Pennsylvania has to be done and underway, but not necessarily operational before the 2024 election. That's kind of the elephant in the room, I think, politically. But we don't know how this is going to play out, because we have the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration, who kind of is holding the purse strings, and then you have Amtrak, who has the proposal for all the different projects, 39 in total. And in fact, I'm in the process of putting together a comment to the FRA. They put a request for information out, and they're looking to get guidance on exactly how to do this process, because this is something that they've never had this kind of money. We're talking 66 billion that's being thrown in their way. Not thrown their way, but you know what I mean. But it's a large sum of money, and you have a whole bunch of different projects that are competing and politically are lobbying to get the money for their particular project. So there has to be a way of making sense of this, and so FRA is going through the process of soliciting information from the public, but also interested stakeholders. So the reason why I say that we're probably going to be in a quiet period with Amtrak is because there's a lot of this stuff that's going on where the process has not been defined. So until that's really defined, you're looking at, there's really not going to be a whole lot of tangible type of evidence that something's happening, but it is happening. It's just not something that you can see that's obvious, but it's behind the scenes. One of the things with the comment, and one of the things we're trying to address is that the people in Pennsylvania are a bit more active and involved with this whole Scranton, New York service with Amtrak. And that's something we hope that we will be able to change, not only by this meeting that would be coming up in around mid-year, but other things that we're working on behind the scenes as well. A lot of this stuff is behind the scenes. I have to say that. That's just the way it is. Politically, that's a lot of this stuff is happening that way. And one last thing here and I don't know if this will go anywhere, but Andover is, we were told, maybe looking into becoming a station stop. We don't know if that is a possibility or not. They're not on the map, so to speak. They're not one of the stations that were originally designated by Amtrak, but from what I'm told, that nothing is engraved in stone, so you never know. I mean, we'll have to see, but there is a process involved with that, and there's also funding that has to be identified, and funding is going to be the bottom line and basically everything. That, and if you have a host railroad that is hostile, which, if anyone's been following the Gulf Coast situation, how difficult it can be if you don't have a host railroad that's cooperative. It can be very, very difficult to basically get your project off the off the dime. Literally late this afternoon, we opened up a bunch of new cutoff websites. I'll direct you to Lackawanna, www.lackawannacutoff.com. There are others here as well. We have one little issue that's going on behind the scenes. It's not a big issue, but we're trying to resolve it. But all of these different websites work, but they end up pointing you where we want you to go, which is basically to the .org website. So if you put in .com or .net or .info, you'll end up at the .org website. But if you do visit it, I would suggest, at least for the time being, go to the .com one. The .net and the .info ones work, but the .org one, you have to put in, you have to omit the www. So just for your information, just use the .com. There is a petition that we put in there, so we haven't really officially announced that, but we'll be doing that maybe tomorrow morning. I'll put something out to start the petition there. There's a petition that was already started in Pennsylvania, and that they have like 1,200 signatures. I'm hoping we can be able to exceed that number here in New Jersey. A call out to Tyler Kuzma, who has really helped us out in terms of putting together the website and also the petition, which is on the website. And and also I mentioned here, I've already talked about this, the coalition that has met several times in the past, and we're looking for late spring for the next meeting in Newton. So I guess this is where we wanted to break for questions before you do the entertainment, Keith, if there are any questions that are that have come up from the group.
Well, I could just comment. I could see NJ Transit campaigning for an Andover stop just to relieve some of the financial burden of making it an of its own expense, So
that would be an interesting development if they were to do that.
Not that the cutoff needs 2 stops, but still, again, if NJ Transit could save a few bucks, I could see them, campaigning for that.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then you can make an argument that they're trade-offs here, because Andover would be, and we don't know exactly, because I don't know that New Jersey Transit at this point is tying themselves down to how many trains that actually run to Andover per day. I think at one point it was like 6 or 8 in each direction. We'll see how that plays out now. To give them the,
And one other wrinkle in the ointment that is worth following is this turning the Water Gap into a national park versus a national recreation area. That's why I hope construction can get through the Water Gap before it becomes a national park, because altering a national park is difficult,
What are the stop up there in Blairstown? Is that just going to be a shelter? Chuck, do you know, or?
We don't know. You see, here's the thing, that the original proposal, which is the environmental assessment that was done, and which laid out where the stations would be, how many spaces there would be at each station, and all that stuff, that was predicated on this being a New Jersey Transit project back in 2009, 2010. And not Amtrak. So specifically at Blairstown, I don't believe that they were looking at having for them to take over the station, although they wanted the station to have something, I think that's something along the lines of something which is rail compatible or something like words to that effect. But I don't know if that would be closed out. I mean, Amtrak, I believe, is required or would be required to have a station agent present if there's more than an average of 40 passengers per day at the station. So I would assume Amtrak passengers and not, New Jersey Transit ones necessarily. So that we don't know. I mean, it's a long answer to a short question, but we don't know exactly what would happen at Blairstown, for example, or for that matter, East Stroudsburg or Tobyhanna or Mount Pocono or even Scranton, although Scranton, their station actually exists right now.
Does the Balby family still own the property? Balby or up there in Blairstown?
Yes, I believe, well, they lease, I don't know if the CrossFit folks actually lease that, the station, or if they actually own it. I think they lease, but I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure. So to your point, it would be Balby, although Balby hasn't been actively involved there in quite some time that I'm aware of. So they're basically out of the picture, I think, for the most part. For your information, not for your information necessarily, but for the group's information, for quite some time that was a recycling center with the Balby folks. But it hasn't been a recycling center in quite some time. In fact, there's some issues with that as well, but that's another story. Keith, do you have access to open up the chat, or you?
Yeah, there's not, the chat's a little quiet.
Because I have two that are sitting. I don't know if there was anything on that, or is that something that?
I have a
old stuff?
question.
Yes.
If you
go ahead.
guys can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Vince.
Chuck, now I follow your videos like all the time. This funding for this project to Scranton, what happens down the road? Let's say we get a new president. Can they pull back that funding?
I would say that if you put it into the hands of FRA and Amtrak, that once you start spending the money and you have the project going, I would say that the ability of let's say a future president to tamper with that is probably very, very limited. You could do indirectly. I mean, if you get different people in on the Amtrak board, or I think the chances of that happening are very limited. I think the issue is really getting it designated in the first place, and also there's getting a state match, because it looks like it's either 75 or 80% federal, and there's a 20% state match that has to take place. And then 5 years down the road, now there's some of these things, these details have been kind of mentioned early on and then kind of floated away. We hadn't heard much about it. What will happen down the road, like 5 years down the road? Will let's say the states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania have to take over the service, and then they're going to be responsible for any funding shortfalls and that kind of thing. So these are questions that haven't really been quite answered yet. But the biggest question is getting the project onto what I'll call a priority list. I'm not sure if what they're going to call it, but that was one of the questions that I mentioned about, where the FRA is soliciting for information from the public. One of the things I put in, they should really put together like a 3-tiered priority type of system, where you have high priority, medium priority, and low priority projects. And you would think that even if they don't define it that way, that they're going to have like high, projects that are most likely going to get done, and then they're going to be, below that, varying degrees of the ability to get those projects done for various reasons, of which the vast majority, in fact, almost all of the 39 projects are dealing with at least one class 1 freight railroad. This project, Scranton, and the service to Ronkonkoma are the only two that don't have a class or any freight railroad. I'll call it a freight railroad that potentially would be hostile. We know that the Lackawanna, the Delaware Lackawanna in Pennsylvania is friendly, and it's a state-owned or a publicly owned right-of-way. The problem is that the vast majority of the other 38 projects, or we would be dealing with potentially privately owned right-of-way And that's a recipe for potential problems, possibly.
Oh, can I make a comment? I to that question. I thought this was they had 7 years. It's a federal bill that this had to be spent within 7 years funding. Because
Yeah, that's another issue in terms of how quickly it gets spent. I mean, that with the cutoff, I mean, I've been talking about Andover service, that was spent over, yeah, I think it was over 5 years or more. That was
well, I mean, to
actually
address
spent.
the question about another president coming in, you're into a new president wouldn't come in, let's say, if there is one, January 2025, you're into 5 years into this. So I doubt they'll be able to tinker with it. That's my own understanding of it. Secondly, the way the Atlantic City line came together, Amtrak operated the service. They built that line, if I recall correctly. They were the ones who they built it, and then New Jersey Transit kind of did the local passenger service, and then Amtrak pulled out. I don't want to say it, but I almost envision something similar taking place down the road here. Amtrak builds it, and then that funding after whatever, then New Jersey Transit's running the trains to East Stroudsburg. That's kind of how I see it going, but.
Well, there's also the scenario of extended service, which once again, behind the scenes, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, was pushing for Binghamton. He's actually was in the past pushing for Syracuse service. That's down the road. They were pushing actually for it to be somehow included in the first round, in other words, with Scranton. And that was thought to be as much as it sounds like a really good idea, if you're like trying to get a bigger package together, it would have slowed things down, because then you bring in Norfolk Southern. So, but that's where you want to look at, maybe in terms with keeping Amtrak in there, that if you expand the map, so to speak, to Binghamton, to Syracuse, to Corning, whatever they do. I mean, granted, there are logistical problems with doing all that, but if they can get Gulf Coast service, they can certainly get to Binghamton or Syracuse for that matter. So, but the thing is, that would be where they have to expand the route. Otherwise, you're right. It could be that within a certain amount of time, no matter what they do, and quite frankly, I think there's a lot of proposals I'm hearing that where they may be possibly getting, let's say, the casinos involved, or who knows, the ski lodges, or there certainly are financial aspects to this where they can make this a successful service. But in the long run, I think it may be wise that they would be thinking in terms of expanding it, so you have a bigger political base, and that. Well, I mean, that's just, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that's something maybe they would be possibly thinking about. But, that's a few years ahead of right now, not now.
Is Bridge Line still lurking in the background, or is that basically dead
What
for
bridge line
free?
is-
For free?
I don't see how you would do freight.
No.
That's the thing. How would you do it? That would be my question.
Well, you'd bring
Those
it down, like DL would just bring it on down and tie in with the river guys at Port Morris.
There's really not much. I mean, there's a little bit of freight, but that comes in via Phillipsburg. I don't know that you need to bring that in via the cutoff.
Yeah.
And whatever's happening over in Pennsylvania, their route has been set. I don't even think they rarely come down to the Water Gap anymore.
Really?
So really, and then on top of that all, there's probably very little of any chance there's going to be any local freight.
Well, no,
returning
that's
to the
why I said
cutoff.
just a bridge line.
Yeah, I just don't see it. There's just not enough freight out there,
Yeah.
and this particular line hasn't been used as a freight line, of course, since the late 70s. So all those routes have been, they're all set. So
Yeah, and the North Branch and the High Bridge line is gone. So that was the other
yeah.
continuation.
So there's there isn't that much
Yeah.
freight to go around that they would justify it. And you're certainly not going to be bringing double stacks in, because
Oh, no.
you just can't. You wouldn't be able to get past Dover, and the catenary. So Yeah, and that's even if you could get it to Croxton Yard, which you can't. Mike, you know these routes better than I do, but I mean, what are your thoughts on this? You're on mute. We can't.
Yeah, freight would be difficult because the routes are set. NJ Transit has got the east end of the line so clogged, it's really difficult to get freight through there. Now, where I work, I could route freight up to the DL that way, but it'd be quicker to go other ways. Freight is unlikely. From the refinery, what we would do is store cars up in Scranton, but it's so unlikely. It's so it's so unlikely. Get the line established first, and if
No, I just threw it out there. That's all, it's.
and plus, the minute the Class 1 railroads get a hint that they're going to lose any freight revenues over this thing, they will torpedo things ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even bring it up in public.
And the bottom line is that the chance of freight returning, and we're not talking about, a few cars here or there, maybe, but that's a really a long shot. But anything like we saw back in the 70s or something, I'd say forget it. That's just not going to happen.
You might get a local car now and then, or non-revenue stuff, in the event of a disaster or some detour, maybe you might see something. But again, I wouldn't even bring that up in public because you don't want the Class 1s fighting this thing. We don't need any more enemies right now,
Especially for the likelihood being almost like nil, basically.
Exactly.
Almost.
Chuck, do you mind hitting the buttons or instead
No,
of
not
switching
at all.
over? So we'll
No, I'm not doing
entertaining.
anything else. So I'm
Okay,
at your
I have a
beck and
couple of
call.
slides I threw together here, speaking of freight. So I threw together, stepping away from the cutoff, some stuff from the late 90s, early 2000s in the North Jersey, New York area. So I'm going to start off with this photo here. This is the Maywood station before it was restored. And this is how I kind of got, involved in the restoration process there in Maywood. And it's a fully restored museum now. And this is what it looked like back in 1996, I believe this is, with the stack train on the Susquehanna. And stack trains don't exist anymore on the Susquehanna even. So things changed even over on that railroad. Chuck, go ahead, hit the button.
Well, that's a good question. I have a question for you about that. So what happened to the stack trains?
Well, Joe Neely, Joe's here, or Mike can answer this, but there was, after Conrail split, wasn't there, didn't the freight go to CSX?
Norfolk Southern,
Yes.
Norfolk Southern and CSX bought the Susquehanna. It's like a 52-48 or 50-40 kind of arrangement. So the stacks travel north over the river line. Once in a while on a detour, they'll go up to Suzie, but very rare.
Right, and Hanjin went over to Croxton. They stopped going to Resources Terminal because they weren't happy with the service at Resources.
And then they went out of business.
Yes, exactly. Then they went out of business. But yeah, so they lost, Susquehanna lost that business to Croxton.
But CSX keeps Sparta Mountain. They normally run a train three east and 3 west 6 days a week, plus locals. There is good local freight on it. So
Yeah, there's still,
Yeah.
there's tremendous, there's still a lot of local freight business, but other than the 99s and 100s.
Right.
that's pretty much it, unless there's faster stuff.
Chuck, can you hit the button? So speaking of, you'll see some more stack trains here. This is Binghamton, New York. That's the old freight house there on the right. And this is, it's an F-45 leading I believe this is a train, 555 Sealand train left out of North Jersey on a Friday night. This is an early Saturday morning arrival in Binghamton. So, spring of 1998, dismal, gloomy day in lovely Binghamton.
Now, is this Lackawanna trackage or is this Erie at this point, Rich?
This is
Sort of.
Erie. This is Erie coming up. I believe this is Erie, right, Mike? This is Erie.
Here it is.
Yep.
Okay.
This is Hawthorne, and this is another stack train on the Susquehanna. A group in Hawthorne, the volunteers, they restored that train station there. And I believe they actually moved it a couple of years ago, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
Yes.
Trucks with,
Yeah, we had it slid a little west.
because the
Because the
trucks
trucks,
would
yeah,
hit the roof when they would turn the street there.
mhm, exactly.
But this is an eastbound on a Sunday morning, winter of 1998. Got some Burlington Northern power there coming through. I think it's a Montana Rail Link, the second one, believe it or not. Back when we had foreign power, it came down. Go ahead, Chuck. So this is another 555. Now they cut the train. The Susquehanna trackage is on the right over there, X DL&W. And this is where they interchange in Syracuse, and that's the Chicago line, ex New York Central. And what happens is they cut the train. It's right around the corner there on the right. You can't see it, but Conrail would pick the train up there, and a little while later, and they would pull the train and continue the train west, and the power would then go back down to Binghamton. So they cut the train, and they're going onto the Chicago line to reverse, and then they'll go down back to Binghamton there. Complicated maneuver, and once the split happened, this whole operation ended. So I'm glad I got these shots when I did. So this is one where I had to run out in front of traffic to get the shot here. The Susquehanna train is actually going away from me, reversing. And it's heading for the Passaic branch, which is where the Garden State Paper Mill used to be, which is long gone now. So he's shoving backwards, and above it is the OIBU, a Conrail freight train, Oak Island, Newark, New Jersey to Buffalo, New York. And that train used to drop off freight at Passaic Junction, which this is the junction, the actual track that connects the lines together is off to my right. But this is an interesting over-under shot. Obviously can't be repeated with the Conrail not around anymore, and the Jeep 18s are not on the property anymore. They're down on the East Penn Railway. So an interesting shot from the winter of 1997 there. Chuck. Now this was this is Port Jervis, New York. Last stop on the that you can get on. You get on a Metro North train or a New Jersey Transit train, and you get off up here. And I took a ride up on a hot, sultry summer day, and my train went into the yard. And this is actually a Susquehanna train, eastbound train 252, and those are Hanjin blue stacks behind the locomotives there. And this train is destined for New Jersey over the Susquehanna. But I believe they were recrewing here when I got off the New Jersey Transit train. And so it was interesting to see some Canadian Pacific power up in Port Jervis. This was this was not a Hanjin train. This is a 258. And I was actually up in Port Jervis for the Chesapeake and Ohio, the 614 steam locomotive. And the day before this was a massive rainstorm. So you can see all the water off to the right there. This is a Sunday. And so this train, I think they used to always say this was the always late 258. This train's supposed to be into New Jersey in the morning hours. And this is probably around 11 o'clock in Port Jervis, a good 4 or 5 hours away. So he was going to snake through the on the main track while the C&O 614 was being spun on the turntable, which is behind me and off to the right. Now, I don't know if Joe or Mike or if anybody has any, the Port Jervis Museum, they're gonna have something going on this year, the new museum in Port Jervis. Does you guys have
Yes.
a comment on that? Or,
Yes, the grand opening is Memorial Day weekend,
okay,
and the turntable is operable. The Erie Lackawanna Dining Car Society, their equipment is moving to Port Jervis,
okay.
so that's going to be happening soon. So I'm not sure what happened in Scranton as to why they had to leave, but they were looking for a new home, so their equipment is coming.
And the Toys for Tots, the military transport, they're gonna be in Port Jervis as well now? That's their home?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, so the equipment, the box cars and a couple cabooses are going to be based in Port Jervis.
so Port Jervis is gonna have a little museum, it sounds like. And
Yes,
put something together up there, which is good news for Port Jervis.
yes, definitely. The mayor, the town council, and there's a couple other organizations up there who are all behind this project. So,
What, now, I don't know if anybody has the answer to this, but there was an Erie E8 up there, which was owned by Jimmy Wilson. That E8 was for sale, I heard recently. It got moved and then it was up for auction or sale or something, or does anybody
Yeah,
have?
Yeah, the
clarity?
E8 and the Canadian National cars were moved down to SMS in South Jersey. Jimmy allowed that to settle debts he owed. Ray Klaus was in charge of it, and now once the engine got down there, the E8 was put up for sale because there's now a lien on the equipment because of the cost of the freight move. So we'll see, that remains to be seen. There are efforts for people to buy it. The asking price was over $100,000, and an E8 is the most expensive locomotive a museum can operate. So,
Wow.
So there are talks about people buying it or trying to save it and keep it in New Jersey.
That was an actual Erie E8, not a replica.
No, that's an Erie E8 from the Conrail business train. When Bennett Levin bought the 3 E8s, he sold that one immediately because it wasn't. I don't even know if it has HEP. But
hopefully somebody can save it because that'd be nice to have saved somewhere.
I can't imagine it not being saved.
That's a pretty pricey number on there for one engine being down.
yeah, I think it was listed for about around 150 on Ozark Mountain.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, and one prime mover is non-working.
Right. At one point, Tri-State even made a cash offer for it, but that was laughed out of the ballpark. But there hasn't been a higher offer that I'm aware of. So
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed something happens with it. I should have put a picture in there of that engine, but
yeah, Joe, have you heard anything about the dining car group when that move might take place?
it was supposed to have happened February. There's also some equipment that came up out of Garfield that's up on the Stourbridge line.
Right, that's going to move with it.
Right. The issue is what we've been hearing, there's apparently a rolled rail. And this happened back in late summer, early fall. And Stourbridge still has not fixed that rolled rail. So the equipment can't move.
Right, and I don't think the dining car group was forced to leave. I think they're a rationalization. They started selling off some of the circus train cars and parts to raise some money. I think they're just trying to reorganize it. I think the rate in Port Jervis is better. So they're going to do that. And their opportunities to operate will be with the toy train group around Santa Time.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, so what the plan is for the Dining Car Society equipment to move to Binghamton, and then the Susquehanna is going to move it to Lackawaxen, and they're going to pick up the equipment, some of the other equipment from Operation Toy Train that's on the Stourbridge, and
Right.
go to Port Jervis, so it's one move. But Stonebridge Bridge still has not repaired the rolled rail. So the equipment's stuck behind that.
Is this equipment going to be safe in Port Jervis? Because when I was up there, the kids threw rocks through
Yeah.
the Jimmy
Well,
Wilson.
The mayor and the police chief gave their support to this and said that they would, step up patrols in that area. So that was addressed early on. That's what I was told.
Yeah. A lot
If I-
has to happen, and a lot is happening, and I give Rudy credit for orchestrating a lot of this. But
Yes,
a lot of people,
definitely.
a lot of people involved, and a lot's going on.
Mhm.
They announced Memorial Day weekend for
Yes,
the kickoff.
the grand
There's,
opening.
Can I,
in railroad terms, Memorial Day weekend is tomorrow, so there's still a lot has to happen.
can I chirp in for a second? Because I was in Port Jervis earlier today.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that, believe after speaking to Rudy, I think the Dining Car Society said some of the equipment moving in there is going to happen very shortly. And I know he's also expecting some box cars, some freight cars donated from CSX to be coming in very shortly as well. And the plans are to get those repainted in the next couple, before Memorial Day, at least one of them. So we were working on some track, and they're also doing a lot of mechanical work on the 44 tonner, and the fuel pump froze up on the shop switcher. But things are progressing, and that there are a number of work sessions planned for going on. But I think you're correct. And as far as the Dining Car Society, because they're looking to, even if they're stationary, to be able to use the cars, the dining cars, to have even, stationary meals. So something they can use for generating revenue, trying to get lights on. So there's a lot going on, and there were, about 10, 12 people up there this morning doing various mechanical and track work things. So yeah, things will be moving, and Memorial Day should be interesting because, Port Jervis, I think, is very, very excited about having them,
Yeah.
doing something with the museum.
Definitely.
Whose property is the museum on?
Well, I believe Port Jervis actually owns the tracks, the yard tracks. So they're separate from the Metro North,
Mhm.
and because there were talking about some of the yard tracks that are, again, I don't know if familiar you are with the site, but as you come in the parking area from from the supermarket, from the grocery store, there's that dog park and parking areas over there. There are some tracks that run parallel to that road that apparently are partially paved over, and looks to be some grading that is going to be done in the next couple of days to potentially uncover some buried yard tracks, and that would give them increased capacity. Talking about moving the fence back that's around the turntable, and installing some bollards. So there's a lot of plans
Okay.
and for developments in there. So I say it's gonna be a lot going down in the next couple of weeks.
One of the guys is turning yellow pretty quickly. Yeah.
Chuck, you want to continue? Hit the next slide there.
I'll cut that one tomorrow then.
Well, this is just west of Port Jervis. This is a 258. I believe I do have a picture of Port Jervis, that station area coming up. That's why I think I have one in this presentation. But this is the summer of 1998, excuse me. 258 with some freight on the head end going over Mill Rift, and Port Jervis is 2 miles or 3 miles to the east, to the right. Chuck?
My sister.
Okay, so there's the yard tracks that we're talking about in Port Jervis. So that's basically where the museum is going to be, right to the right of this. Too bad the coal towers aren't there anymore, but this is the 614 back in October 1996. It's one of my favorite shots that I've taken over the years. And it was pulling off the turntable to go back to the main line.
All right.
Chuck. So there's another shot of the 614 in Port Jervis. And basically right to the right of where the front of the steam engine is where the
One that they had.
Metro North
Um,
office is there.
advertising
And the turntable's right behind it.
that looked a lot more yellow than this.
Chuck, go ahead. There's the 614 again, further east, coming down through the Meadows and over HX into Secaucus, 1996. I had to throw in an old one from 1982. This was coming. This is actually pushing. This is an eastbound train, and it's going away from me. And this is a U34CH exterior Lackawanna. And I don't think you can get down to this spot anymore without getting arrested. So this is off limits, but there are a lot of trains that pass through this area. Moving a little bit further into the early 2000s, this is just a regular New Jersey Transit commuter train passing through Hohokus, heading westbound. I believe this is a Metro North express train. So this one will be going to Port Jervis on a warm spring day. And here we go. Here's another westbound. This is Hollywood Ave. So just a little bit further down from where that last photo was taken. Now I threw this in here. Now this is a little rare because this is actually a diesel powered train set. And this is on the Gladstone line, ex-Lackawanna. And so they actually were doing work on the wires. So they had diesel train sets that weekend. So which is the reason why they have this train set out there back in 2004. Back to Waldwick. This is over the pedestrian. This is the pedestrian overpass, Metro North train heading westbound for Port Jervis. On the left-hand side, you'll see what is a lumber yard behind the station, and that is all condominiums now. So another online business gone. Great business. This is down in Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, July 1996. I guess that Point Bay, the oil, the gas facility there, I don't know if they were getting cars at the time, but I'm willing to bet that they don't anymore. I don't think any freight goes down that way. So that one is definitely, I don't know when the last freight train must even go down that far in the line, to be honest with you, all the way down to Point Pleasant or Bayhead. Go ahead, Chuck. This is Ramsey back in 2000, eastbound Metro North train. The building to the left of the train is the old Ramsey Firehouse, which actually I believe it still stands there. At this point in time, I believe it was getting rebuilt, not as a firehouse, but as somebody else owns it. But that is the original Ramsey Firehouse next to the tracks there. This is a Conrail eastbound coming through Hohokus. Buffalo, BUOI was Buffalo to Oak Island and Newark. And this is actually a Norfolk Southern train. It might have been the symbol. I might have had the old symbol, but this is one of the last times they were running through freights over this part of the Southern Tier and into Croxton and down into Oak Island. Now this is an OIBU, and if you had just turned me around, this is looking the other way, and that's Hohokus, and that's a westbound Oak Island to Buffalo, and its first drop off would be in Suffern, New York, which is about 10 miles from where we are here. Another westbound Conrail coming through Hohokus, Hollywood Avenue, a local, and that's the Nabisco. I'm sorry, yeah, that's the Nabisco cars that he's traveling with there. Another OIBU, this is in Tuxedo, just west of Suffern, along the southern tier. And those are some ex-Erie Lackawanna SD 45-2s. So they're on home trackage. And yeah, it was actually very rare to see them out on the road because they were really delegated to the SD 45-2s were used as pushers in Altoona. And then towards the end of Conrail, they started showing up all over the place. And then they put them on, of all things, OIBU over the ex-Erie Lackawanna. So it's nice to get them on home rails. This is a train coming through Voorheesville. I don't have the symbol on this one, but this is Conrail, obviously, and one of its trailer van or TV symbol trains. TV was the abbreviation they used for trail van back in the 80s and 90s. Another Conrail, and this one is a BUOI, Buffalo to Oak Island, and it is backing up away from me, and it's backing up onto New Jersey Transit. So he's making a reverse move, and he's going to go pick up his train. And if you look right above the second, like the first boxcar, you'll see the signal bridge, and Route 80 is right behind it there. So that's literally right under Route 80 in Saddlebrook, let's say. And the Susquehanna is right behind me there. That's the connection track between the Bergen County line and the Susquehanna. And this is my last picture. I wanted to throw in something I threw in one Pennsylvania shot. This is a PT 98 Scranton in February 2007. Very cold day, but cold days in the snow, I like them for photographs. And this was going to head east out of town. And yeah, it's a cold day. And even though we didn't get much snow this winter, I like a little bit of snow for the winter photography. And I believe, Chuck, that's my last photo for the presentation.
It is.
So does anybody have any final comments on anything we went over tonight? Well, I guess if there's no comments, I'd like to just say, keep following us on the Facebook page. We'll have updates on our lease situation. I'm sure, Chuck, you'll have updates with Amtrak and Roseville when we have updates over the summer if anything happens. We will do our next meeting in the fall. And if we have any news on a lease, we will we'll let you know how we're going to do the meeting. But I think we'll probably do Zoom again for the fall. I don't think we're going to have time to get anything ready in the station if we got the lease tomorrow. So we'll probably do one more via Zoom as of now. And if anything else is going on, I'll be in attendance in Port Jervis, and Mike, I'm going to come to the symposium in Montclair. If you guys want to post those dates when they are, when they become available and cross promote on our page, feel free to do so. And thank you all for coming out tonight.
Well,
Okay,
thank you,
thanks a lot.
Keith and Chuck.
That's Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
Fred?
everyone.